Hello and welcome to the Banker's Tech Talk video series, taking the pulse of the fintech community. I'm Joy Macknight, Managing Editor of The Banker. And with me is Rune Mai, who's CEO of Nordic API Gateway, which is a plug-and-play application programming interface, or API, solution. Rune, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So earlier this year, you conducted some research into the implementation of the second Payment Services Directive, or PSD2. What were your main findings?
The research we did was conducted here in the Nordic countries, and it was done across different industries, banks, payment companies, and accounting systems, and also consumers, taking the pulse on consumers' adoption. And what we found is that a lot of companies is already innovating on top of PSD2, which I find really, really interesting. More than 50% of all asked were building solutions that used PSD2 as the foundation.
So what are sort of the main challenges for the implementation overall?
The main challenges is definitely that these new APIs that the banks have to provide is still a totally new way of doing products for banks. It's a very technological product, you could say, and that also means that it's still in its baby steps, right? So we are seeing a lot of maturing going on, and we are, as an aggregator, helping to mature the market together with the industries, with the banks themselves. But I would say that the most challenging part is probably the quality and the performance of those interfaces that people have to use.
And what would you say are the ingredients for a recipe for success?
The recipe for success, I would say, that comes down to building a truly great product, which means that you're using open banking to actually facilitate and cater for either business owners or consumers out there in totally new ways. So like getting access to people's bank accounts is also a way of getting access to the documentary of your life, you could say. Like, where did you spend money? And by knowing this, you could actually help improving people's life by giving them back benefits based on the persons they are. And that's one end is probably the consumer adoption, that you have to build something that is truly great. And as part of that, it's also very important that the interfaces that provide the data is of stellar quality. And I think that's probably the main ingredient here, that we have to have like really good technology in place in order to build convenience into people's lives in totally new ways than seen before.
And do you have any examples of that? You know, how can businesses really use open banking to really drive value for their customers?
Yeah, we see a lot of examples here in the Nordics and also across Europe. I know that the UK itself has a lot of really good examples of how to facilitate open banking in your solutions. But one example that is really interesting here in the Nordics is that we see the accounting systems moving really, really fast in the area of open banking. Those systems have always been like working with banking data, right? They need the transactions somehow to kind of reconciliate the books. So now they can do this automatically. And that might, for many people, mean, okay, so they can do something that previously was manual, now automatic. Yeah, that's just one leg of it. The other leg is by being able to fetch all the data and add it to the accounting system. All of a sudden, the business owners, they only need to go to the accounting system to get an overview of their finances, which is then leaving the banks at prey, you could say, in terms of whether people, they stop using the mobile banks and then no longer provide the revenue streams that are tied to usage of these banks for the businesses. So I think that's a very, very good example. But we also see examples like in the consumer space where people, they use the data to give back benefits to all its users, right? We have like a platform in Denmark that treats you for the way you live your life. So if you spend a lot of money in certain areas, then the system makes sure that you get it cheaper by knowing that you're spending money there, right? The biggest issue of, you could say, commercials and ads is probably irrelevance, that people, they don't know why they serve the ad to you, which means you become frustrated because you're like watching stuff that is totally irrelevant to you. Open banking is helping in these aspects. And then the last part is probably payments, where we see a major lift off right now going on in terms of using PSD2 for payments. We have a a lot of checkout systems that are now integrating account-to-account payments directly into their checkout solutions, allowing merchants to give you as a customer the ability to pay directly with your account. And I think that's going to be the next big wave that we will see roll over Europe and challenge like Visa and MasterCard.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your insights, Rune.
My pleasure.